Agree.
Welcome to the art and science of difficult conversations, where we believe when you communicate better, you live better. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and as always, I'm joined by Lucy. Lucy, I'm very excited about today's topic because, well, number one, I've been married for a while, but I think it's so interesting seeing how dating has evolved in relationships over time. Because when I was single, we had Match and eHarmony and some of those online dating things, but we didn't have apps when I was single. And so the whole landscape is totally different, I think. And it's the conversations people are having with each other are different. So I'm excited today. I was on her podcast recently, to talk about relationships. And I kind of do a little bit of this in my therapy world. But so today we're joined by a dating and relationship expert and the host of the Love Coach in My Pocket podcast, Whitney. Whitney, welcome to our podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, Chris. Hey, Lucy.
Hey, welcome.
Whitney, how about you share with our audience kind of where you're from, what do you do, and how you got to what you're doing now?
Sure. So I live in New York. I never dreamed of living in New York City. It just sort of happened one moment after another. I grew up mostly in Florida after being born in Oregon. I've been around the country, but I moved to New Jersey with my late husband. His whole family was in New Jersey and my family spread all around the country. So we went for a visit and I was like, what if we moved here? So we did. And that was a little over 10 years ago. And, I was working my corporate job and doing my thing. And in 2017, my husband passed away really suddenly and unexpected. Oh, it was just devastating and completely changed my life. And after that, everyone said don't make big changes for at least a year. So I stayed in my job. I stayed in my house. I didn't start a new serious relationship. But as soon as that year mark hit, I just changed everything. And one of the things that he taught me was that life is short and there's no reason to wait to do the things that we want to do. And I felt passionate about helping people on a more personal level, helping people with dating, with interacting. I had studied psychology, but didn't use it because I went into corporate recruiting and talent acquisition. So I left my job and I became a matchmaker. And that was super fun and interesting and cool. And I have couples that are married now that keep in touch with me that I set up. But I had clients that I could set up with the type of people they were exactly asking for, and it just wasn't working out. And I got really curious about the inner workings and what's going on here and what are the blocks. And so I got my coaching certification, started coaching my matchmaking clients, eventually started my own coaching business. And now I've been doing that since 2020. So going on 5 years with my own coaching business. I still work with a matchmaking company also as a coach. So I can set people up with a matchmaker, or I can help them learn how to become their own matchmaker. It's been a tough road. I never really planned to be an entrepreneur, but I love it and I'm passionate about it. And it's going to a client's wedding because she says, Whitney, if you weren't for you, I wouldn't be here. So you need to be here. It's the stories that I hear from people that really motivate me and keep me going. And plus, I just find it so fascinating and interesting. So I'm excited to be here and to talk about the key conversations that we need to have all throughout the dating and relationship process.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing. Thanks for being open. Thanks for being vulnerable with us. Appreciate that. When we think about dating, I think for many of us, we're thinking about COVID, and that changed a lot of it because just that distancing and just I think people missed out on the ability to socialize for a couple of years in person. What are you seeing as changes from that dating pre and post COVID?
I mean, the biggest thing is just the level of interaction that happens behind a screen versus in person. That's just hands down totally changed. And it's kind of gone like we went way up in interacting online and using the dating apps and having virtual dates. And now everyone's kind of fatigued of this dating app culture. And it's really changed the way we date and the culture. I mean, this swipe culture just makes us make snap judgments on people, which is not normal. It's not natural. There's so much gray area in between of, it's not just, is this person good or bad? Are they good for me or bad for me? There's so many layers and levels to find out. And people are just being kind of lazy with it. They're like, why am I not finding love? Why is this not working? And then I look at their profile, and their profile has nothing but generic information, and their conversations are all the same. Hey, how are you? I'm good. What are you up to? Making dinner. What are you making? Spaghetti. And then it's like, no one's that interested. So the conversation trails off, and it's just spinning wheels, not getting anywhere. Every once in a while, someone comes along, and then you go on some dates and you meet them and you get excited. And then, there's a bump in the road, there's a disagreement, there's a misunderstanding, and they just part ways, just goodbye. Don't even bother. Like, not willing to have the hard conversations that make us grow. Relationships are a tool. They're a mirror. They show us different parts of ourselves. They show us where we need to work on ourselves, where we need to mature and learn and grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So I'm a big fan of helping people, because there's a lot of people out there that say, I don't even want a relationship. Fit.
Yeah.
They're like, I give up. And I relate, I understand. I think it's healthier to be alone than to be in a bad or toxic relationship. But there is so much joy and pleasure and learning and growth to be had in a relationship that is serving you.
And sorry, are you in a relationship now?
Yeah, I met my partner a year after my husband passed away, and we've been together 7 years.
Great. That's awesome. When you started coaching, or when you started thinking about the coaching and helping other people, did you ever reflect back on the way you were approaching and realize, why did I do that? That's not great either.
The only reason I'm here doing this is because I struggled so much. Isn't it the case where most people that are teachers and coaches, they're teaching the thing that they struggled with and figured out and learned. So my story was throughout my teens, my 20s, like, first of all, I was kind of boy crazy. I just came across one of my diaries from 2000. It's just like this boy and that boy and this boy. I'm like, did I have any other interests? Like, what is this? But I realize now that I felt like there was a gaping hole, a void in my life that needed to be filled by having a partner, having that validation, having somebody there. And I think it's an important stage to go through to be able to be on your own, to feel like you're a whole person. Doesn't mean that that's the final goal for everyone. It's great to find that partner that's a healthy balance, but I would get super anxious, total anxious avoidant pattern happening with me. I would find these avoidant guys and just do the stupidest things and throw myself and I just didn't get it. I didn't understand. Nobody taught me this stuff. And that's what I think my platform is now, is that nobody taught you. We learn from our families, which, let's just agree that they're all dysfunctional to some degree, some more than others. But that's where we learn our relationship skills, and TV and movies, which is all about tragedy and comedy. So we wonder why our love lives are so tragic and hilarious.
So then when you started dating again, was it pretty obvious to you, like what you needed to change about your approach or the way you were thinking about the dating?
So when I was about 30, I found this coach named Rory Ray, who was one of the OG feminine relationship coaches. And I just learned so much. I started just soaking it all in, and it shifted my energy. And that's how I ended up meeting and attracting my husband and getting married. And so I had learned so much before getting together with him. And then after he was gone, and I was like, oh my God, like I have to start over again. Like I thought that that was it. And I knew so much more than I knew before. So I teach about the dating funnel, that at the top of the funnel are all the people that you're potentially exposed to, that you interact with, the guy at the grocery store that says hello, like all the people, whether you're interested or not, people you match with. And then the next step is who you actually engage with, have conversation with, you filter, you get to the point of asking out, and then you go on that first date, and then next, and it all leads down to that one person. So I was at a point, 6-7 years ago, where the top of my funnel was really, really, really big. I was matchmaking. So I was talking to all the single men out there, but I was telling them, I'm not available. I was recently widowed, like back off. And they would quickly like, whoa, I'm not going near that. But it gave me a really interesting lay of the land and this ability to see, because so many people, they think, well, I want this kind of partner. And they think that you can just order it like Amazon and they're just going to show up at your door. And it's like, no, that person has to also choose you. So it's important to know who's available in your demographic. Like, yeah. But I was able to, just knowing what I knew, knowing myself well, knowing what I need, I didn't have to go on a lot of dates. Like I met everyone and I only went on a couple of dates because I had that wisdom of how to pick people. And I hear from a lot of people that they say like, my picker is broken. They have a type, but the type's not working out. They're not attracted to the people that are good. They find healthy people boring and crazy people interesting, exciting. So a lot of this just starts with the inside work and inside growth. And I think we all have growing to do. I think we're all a work in progress, and we never quite arrive completely to a 100% enlightened state. But the whole point of a relationship is two imperfect people coming together to be on this journey together, don't you think?
Yeah, I love that final that last mindset. Like you're working together towards a goal. It's not that you're already done and you're already there. You're going to continue growing together.
And it sounds like also having first the conversation within ourselves before we have it with somebody else, about what really matters to us, who we are as a person, and what we want to offer and what we are looking for in the partner, and really knowing ourselves first.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they start making a list, right? They're like, well, I know I don't want this because that did. And then they start making a list of their perfect person. And that's not even what we want to do. We want to create a vision of our ideal relationship. It's almost like you create almost like a job description, and then you're interviewing people to see if they could fit into that role instead of just looking for the best person ever. Like if you're looking to fill a role and it's in marketing and you meet this person that's like an outstanding financial accountant, and you're like, no, but they're amazing, but they're awesome, but they're just not a fit in the role. I see this all the time. It's like, especially with guys, when they see a pretty girl and they just get like all head over heels, and it's like, she's not that into you. She's kind of a bitch. Like, what are you doing? It's, we need to look for our partner, the person that's good for us, and not like someone that looks good and validates us. And there's a lot of mistakes that people make.
So let's talk through that funnel, because I think that's a great way to even structure kind of how to talk about these different conversations at that beginning, that conversation with ourselves. What do you suggest or help people think about in terms of even that beginning, like how we're engaging with people in the world?
Yeah, so I think the first step is to create the intention, the relationship intention, the love intention. How do you want to feel in this relationship? How do you want to communicate in this relationship? How do you want to spend your time together? Where do you see yourself hanging out? How do you spend your Sundays? How much time do you spend together? Like, what's your ultimate goal for the future? Do you want kids? Do you want to date someone that has kids? These are really important things to get clear on before you start meeting people. And we want to be as flexible as possible. Like, I know when I was dating my son, when my husband passed away, my son was 10. And so when I started dating again, I I was open to somebody that didn't have kids. I was open to someone that wanted more kids. I was open to someone that didn't want more kids. And I was open to a father only if he was a really, really good father. And so I had that kind of flexibility. I have friends that don't have kids and they don't want to date a guy with kids. And I get it. I'm like, no, if you don't have kids and you don't want to deal with that, like, be clear on that ahead of time, because we need to go into this with an abundance mindset. Like, if this doesn't work out, don't try to put the square peg in the round hole. Move on and find someone that is a better fit. And it's kind of confusing because a lot of times there is someone that is a good fit and it's just, this gets complicated or hard or there's a challenge and then everyone just wants to bail. And I think people bail too quickly these days. But also you have to recognize what your pattern is, because some people, they're leaving and they're always leaving and they're always 1 foot out the door, and that person needs to learn how to stay. And then some people just stay and stay and stay and take the crumbs and take the crap and don't have a lot of self-worth and value or whatever their underlying causes are. And so that person obviously needs to learn how to leave. So that's another thing that I think is so important to say, is that there's not really one size fits all advice for everybody. Like, you need to know where you're coming from and what your patterns are, and then work on breaking those patterns to get to that sort of happy middle zone. And I might be rambling and forgetting what the original question was.
No, that was great. I think that absolutely answered the question. It made me think, though, how do you help folks who maybe have that balance between you want expectations and standards and maybe then the other extreme, which is too unrealistic of expectations and standards?
Again, to the funnel, have a big top of the funnel. Go on a lot of first dates, or even call them the 0th date, because a first date, you get dressed up, you might spend a few hours together. And if you don't even know someone, if you've only been talking online, it's good to do a 0th date. It's like an hour or less. You don't have to get all totally dolled up, like, go kind of normal looking. And it's just a meet and greet. A glass of wine is the ideal, or just going to a bar or a wine bar. Even if you don't drink, have a tea, a soda. I find coffee dates, I know a lot of people recommend them, but when I was matchmaking, I never ever had a coffee date turn into a romantic connection, which I think was an interesting data point, because it's just like, it's bright lights, it's busy, it's just not a sexy environment. It's just not very conducive for sparking that attraction. So it's okay to go meet someone for a coffee date, but if you can, try to make it a little bit more interesting. And of course, I teach feminine embodiment and how to be magnetic and like attractive and sexy. And so you can bring your own spark to any date. And that's another thing. I think everyone's kind of waiting, like, well, you better impress me. And it's like, yeah.
How do you have that conversation with the other person to set the intention, like, it is just, we're just hanging out, it's the 0th date, and or are you leaving it very wide open to just saying, let's just hang out, I just want to get to know you better and see what's up?
I wouldn't recommend telling someone there that it's a 0th date. That might make them feel a little bit, something. But it's like, so I have a gift on my website that is how to get more in real life dates from dating apps. Because I think that's one of the most important things these days, is that you're not going to fall in love through text. You're barely going to get to know someone, even if, and when you do, it's not the real them. It's like it's like wanting to hire a resume without ever meeting the person. And so there's just something different when we are interacting with someone. Even virtual, like on video, is close to in person, but text is not. So I recommend that when you're chatting with someone, or if you meet in person, to just nail down the first date. Nail it down. Location, time, date, time, location. Like, don't do one of these, like, let's, maybe we'll hang out Thursday, I'll call you. No, you get the exact location, the exact time right away, and then you have a plan. And it can be as easy as, it's been really fun talking to you. I'd love to see if we have chemistry in person. And you could just say, I have I'm free Thursday night, but I have to work early. So I only have like 6 to 7 if you want to meet up for a quick drink. We'll see how it goes. And then maybe the second date can be more interesting. Even like going for a walk can be really nice. So there's something, and maybe you know this about being communication experts, but there's something about side to side communication that is more compassionate and more understanding and flowing than face to face. There's something more intense. Like when people fight and argue, they recommend sitting next to each other instead of like like adversarially facing each other dead on.
Yeah, it's less threatening.
Yeah.
We used to do that with because I used to work with complex trauma and adolescents. So teenagers don't talk anyway, but you get them in a car driving, they'll talk a lot. They'll share. They'll talk about anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of nice to switch up the dates. Like if you go on 4 or 5 dates with someone, don't make it dinner every single time. Don't make it drinks every single time. Like do an activity, go axe throwing, go bowling, go mini golfing, take a walk, take a swim. Just it's good to see people in different environments and have something where you're up and walking around, something where you're sitting. Laying down comes later.
What about in real life? So that's online, but what about in real life? You see somebody or you're just chatting them at like a social event or whatever.
So people are so scared these days. Men are afraid of being a creep. They're afraid of rejection. Women are afraid that girls can't make the first move. There's a million reasons not to approach someone, but you miss every shot you don't take. And there was this funny meme that I saw years ago that I never forgot, where it's like a comic strip where the girl's like, I'm so tired of online dating. Why can't I just meet someone in person? And then she's at the grocery store and this guy comes up to her and he goes, hey, how are you? And she goes, don't talk to me. And then she's like, so anyway, why can't I meet someone in person? And it's like, that's what I see. Everyone's guard is up. And they're just like, as soon as someone starts talking to you, you're like, what? What do you want? What do you want? So I do recommend connecting with someone, saying hello. I have two. All right. So what you don't need a pickup line. You don't need to wow somebody. You don't need to knock their socks off. And you don't want to come in too strong, saying like, wow, you're so beautiful. Wow, you're so hot. I'd love to take you out. Don't do that, because then that will really like trigger somebody's defensiveness. And unless like, if this really amazing, attractive person comes up to you and is like, I'd like to take you out, you might be like, wow, okay, great. But most of us are somewhere in the average area, like you got to get to know us to see how amazingly gorgeous we are inside and out, right? So I'll tell you 2 ways to introduce yourself. One is to simply say, you look like someone I would like to know. It's so simple. And once you break the ice is broken, and then you can have conversation and you can talk about the food that you're eating, or the place where you are, or the town, or are you new here? How long have you lived here? Like chit chat. But first thing is you have to break the ice, and that's the hardest part. And it just, we overthink it, we overcomplicate it. So I think you can just walk up to someone. Like if I saw someone that I was interested in, I'm like, oh, I wonder if he's single. I might just walk up to him and be like, hey, I'm Whitney. What's your name? And he's like, my name's whatever. I'm like, I don't know. You just looked like someone I would like to know. How's your day going? Like, it doesn't matter. It's awkward. It's hard, but doing the hard things is where it's at. And it's not that hard. And what's the worst that could happen? And you're not saying like, hi, you're amazing. I want to go out with you. And then getting rejected. You're just saying, hi, what's your name? My name's this. Do you live here? What are you up to? And then if you're at a meetup event or a workshop or something where you're all there for the same purpose, my favorite introduction line is, hi, I'm Whitney. I haven't met you yet, because it just sounds like you're supposed to meet this person. And it works every single time. I use it, I teach it, and it's just so simple. And let the conversation flow from there. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I like it simple. And I think it takes the pressure off the internal pressure of having to make it something really impressive. And it lowers the defense of the other person. So I love those those two ideas. That's great. I'll probably start using that when I'm networking. Hey, I haven't met you yet. I'm Chris.
Yeah, and then you just ask them their name, and they're always going to respond with their name. If you ask someone like, hey, you come here often, again, the defenses are going to go up and they're going to be like, why is this person asking me this? What should I say? Should I be honest? I don't know. I don't know. Do you? But if you just say like, hi, I'm so and so, what's your name? They're going to be like, oh, it's like sliding under the fence of the defensiveness. Which I think we have to do these days because everyone's a little bit like taken aback because we've all been hurt before. We've all been traumatized before. We've all been in bad relationships, or, most of us. So it makes sense. I don't blame people for where we're at all. I get it.
Yeah. And especially after COVID, I've heard from some men, I'm just comfortable being at home. I don't have many friends. I would love today, but it's so hard to go to talk to somebody. What would you tell them if they're really worried about being rejected or looking stupid or saying something stupid? What might help them deal with this?
I mean, you might think that the advice that I would have is like, just go out there, just get it, just go talk to people. But I would actually be cautious about that. And I would say, what do you need to do to be confident? Like, maybe he is really confident. He just doesn't like people very much. So he wants to stay in. But a lot of times the guys are afraid, they're insecure. They don't know how to be masculine anymore because they're not sure, because society has made it so confusing that we're like, toxic masculinity is bad. Women are the rulers of the future world. And it's like, we don't want to swing from one extreme to the other. It's not like patriarchy rules and now women rule. It's like, let's stop competing and learn to work together. So yeah, a lot of men are just confused. So I think it's so important to work with a therapist, a professional, a coach, somebody that you resonate with that can help you feel like, hey, I may not be perfect, but I'm the best version of myself, and anybody would be lucky to be with me. That's the key. Like, if you don't feel that way, if you're like, I don't even like myself, who the hell is gonna like me? Then of course you're not going to be going out meeting people and dating and having luck and success. So we got to start there internally with that confidence. But for some people, that's not the issue. They just don't know where to go and they just don't know how to do it. And so, that's why, like, when I'm teaching people how to date and find love, there's always the two-pronged approach. It's the practical advice of, don't use that picture on your profile and say this, and like very practical guidance and tips that work, that are proven, that are tested. And then there's also the inner work of self-compassion and confidence and healing. Those things.
Love that. I think a lot of guys would love if girls came up to them more.
They do.
The paradox, though, is even if girls do come up to guys, I think the male mind, at least I can speak for myself and a lot of guys I've known, is will always still wonder, is she just being friendly or is she actually interested in me? Regardless of how obvious the signal is, we're just not great at that, interpreting it.
Yeah. And that's why I tell girls, all the women not all. Most of the women I work with identify as feminine. They want to be the feminine pole in the partnership. They want a masculine partner. And so I teach also, it's okay to go up to a man. It's okay to break the ice with him, to say hello. But if you really want to keep that masculine feminine dynamic, there's this old practice called dropping the handkerchief. Have you heard of this? No. So back in the day when, gender roles were more firm, to potentially a negative extent, but in some ways also helpful because people just kind of understood. But anyway, when a woman would walk by a guy that she liked, she would drop her handkerchief and keep walking. And then he would go pick it up and walk up to her and be like, oh, you dropped this. Did I? And then, of course, he would ask her out. And it was just like this little flirtatious way where she gives the green light. That's what it's about. Like, if I expect to be a woman and I want guys to ask me out, I can't just walk around doing my thing and ignoring them and be like, why aren't they asking me out? You have to make eye contact with him. You have to flirt. You have to show him that you're open. You have to, like, even if you don't ask him out, which you can, a lot of, guys love that these days, but it often turns into a dynamic where the woman is the one that's leading and pushing and making the decisions. And that can often blow up in a relationship later on if that's not what they both really want. So there's this way that you can break the ice with a guy. Hi, I love your jacket. I'd love to meet you. It's nice to meet you. I'm Whitney. What's your name? Great. But then you want to turn the table in a way where you're no longer leading the conversation. You're letting them lead and you're giving them the green light. You're smiling, you're talking to them, you might touch their arm. You could even go as far as saying something like, I bet if you asked me out, I'd say yes.
I don't think that's clear enough, though, actually. I think it needs to be a little bit more clear.
That line works really well online. Really, because so many guys there's just like this endless chatting and texting, and it's like, let's just meet already. I need to know you before I can, wake up to your good morning, beautiful text every day when I don't even know who you are and I've never met you.
I will say, even if that was me, if I was suddenly single again and somebody said that to me, I would be like, should I? Just want to be clear. But I think that's a good transition, because talking about like those unspoken rules and like those rituals that like people kind of understood. Like, at what point do people, or do you think about people should start having the exclusivity conversation and even the larger conversation around assumptions and expectations and boundaries?
Oh, so good. So I believe that the commitment conversation starts on date number 1. And here's how you do it. If you just say, I'm looking for a serious relationship and I want marriage and kids and I'm not settling for anything less, that person's going to be like, whoa, hey, hold on, I just met you. I don't know. So, but you also don't want to be like, oh, I'm just dating and we'll see, I'm having fun and whatever, because then that person's going to think that that's all you want. So you have to say both what you're looking for long-term and how you're going about it in the short term. And if you are dating like the funnel, then you're dating multiple people at the same time before you're committed. That's the ideal, because then you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're not going crazy when you haven't heard from a certain person for 24 hours. So you want to date multiple people. It also gives you an opportunity to see who's actually following through, who's rising to the occasion. Now, there might be one guy that you're attracted to and you think is really amazing, but then this other guy just keeps like showing up for you and making you feel really special and good. And you're like, okay, well, he might not be as attractive as that guy, but that guy's like off doing his own thing most of the time. So dating multiple people has so many benefits. And again, a lot of people think that it's hard and complicated, especially if they're having trouble getting even one date. They're like, how am I going to date 3 people? But all of this is part of like what I teach, and it's totally possible for anyone. And again, doing the hard things is where it's at. And it's also why we often need a coach and someone to help us, because we're like, oh my God, this is hard. And I know it is. But going back to what I was saying, what was I saying?
Just I think it's a interesting. I would never have thought of it that way, is even on the first date, being clear kind of about what your overall intentions are, but also how you want to get to that point.
Yeah. So it might sound like, I'm really looking for a life partner. I want someone to raise a family with. I want to travel. I want to be old together in rocking chairs and have that lasting love. But, right now I'm just taking my time to get to know people. I'm dating and I'm just open to seeing where it goes until that special person and I decide that we are going to be exclusive together.
Let's say they have that conversation. They both want a relationship. What about the conversation about being intimate and taking that relationship to that level? When? How? What would be your recommendation around that? That's
Yeah. So it is so subjective. Like, I'm not about rules. The way that I look at it is I teach people about the laws of nature. Like, if you understand gravity, you don't need a list of rules that say, don't jump off a house, don't jump out of a building without a parachute. If you just understand how gravity works, you figure it out. And so that's what I teach. So I'm not like, wait until date number 4 or anything like that. It's just like, know that if you jump in too soon, it will cloud your thinking. It will mess things up. If you don't have the conversation about protection and safety and pregnancy, like, you could end up getting knocked up on a one night stand. Like, there's just so many factors that make us want to wait until we're able to have these hard conversations. And again, it's like, it doesn't have to be that. You just do it, you face it. It's always better to have a conversation about it before the thing happens. And so sometimes if you're like getting closer, date wise or in the moment, like, stop and just bring it up and be like, I'd like to talk to you about intimacy. I'd like to talk to you about sex. Like, before I'm ready to go there with someone, we need to at least be able to talk about it. And that's the truth. If someone can't talk about it with you, then they're not ready to do that with you. But you need to make sure that safety is addressed, that pregnancy is addressed, that even, it can be really powerful and amazing to talk about what you like and what you don't like and really get some of that out before that happens, because it will be better if you have that. And the key to great sex is often communication, and not necessarily communication in the moment, because having a long drawn out conversation or things like that can like detract from the moment sometimes. So doing it when you're fully clothed, like on a date or beforehand, can be really awesome. And allowing that buildup is so special. Like, you only get that first time with someone once, and having that moment, like that anticipation and that buildup is really exciting.
Do you feel like people have over time I think we recognize the importance of that conversation should have always been there. But do you feel like people are more and more willing to have that conversation nowadays, or less likely, or the same over time?
Yeah, I mean, there's a site, you might not know all the dating sites, but there's a site out there called Field where people just put all their sexual preferences and kinks like right on the website. And it's like, it's interesting because it is kind of like a hookup site, but it is also kind of a relationship site. And so it's an interesting reflection of where we are now as a society and in our dating beliefs. But I do think that sex is a really important part of a relationship. And I know, for some people more or less, but for me, it's really important. And so knowing some of those things and having an idea about someone, like, I wouldn't want personally. And again, everybody has their right to date how they want to and build relationships how they want to. I don't know that I would want to like wait till marriage and date someone for a year or two before that. That would scare me personally, because, what if? But I know a lot of people do. And the more you talk about it and prepare for it and build that love and connection, like, it's just automatically going to show up in the bedroom too, when you have that level of depth and communication.
It seems like that these conversations could be very tricky for a lot of people because maybe it makes them feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
To share what they want, to ask for what they need, both for women and men.
Absolutely.
And it can be difficult sometimes to navigate, even for women, when, let's say, they don't want to have sex on the first or second date. Maybe they would be okay with after the fourth one. But let's say the guy is really pushing for it. And then it's up to the woman to know kind of where is her boundary. So kind of maybe it always goes back also to the conversation within ourselves. Where is my boundary? And knowing if somebody's pushing against it, that could be kind of a red flag in that communication.
Definitely. Someone's fighting you on it. Anytime that someone wants to wait, that's male or female, like, you need to respect that. You can't push someone before they're ready. And I would say that's definitely a red flag. And I also think that it's natural to want that, to be in the moment. And so there's a way to address it And you can be kind of playful about it. Like, instead of being like, no, I said no, like if you're just kind of like moving things along and playful, sometimes there's a good place for a no, I mean no, like obviously. But sometimes we, I'm setting a boundary and like we just like get all confrontational. And when all we really need to do is be like, oh, I'm so flattered that you want that. Like, I want that too, but I'm just not ready. Like, we can kind of ebb with it. And, something Chris, you and I had talked about before was the nonviolent communication formula, which is really just telling someone, I feel blank emotion, I need blank. And then it becomes a boundary when you say, if you don't do that, this is going to happen. And then we got to follow through on those consequences. But you might say, like, I feel really turned on right now, too. I feel that, but I also feel scared, and I know myself, and I don't want to rush into this and sabotage it. I don't want it to flame out too quickly. I told you before, I really want to wait, and that's what I need. So if you can't wait for me, then, maybe we don't see each other again. But what I need is to wait before we go there.
So really keeping the boundary also with ourselves.
Yeah.
And rather than say, I know I said it, but I don't want to lose the relationship. I don't lose the guy. So maybe.
And that's the funny thing is that, I've come to realize that all my instincts about dating and relationships were wrong. Originally, my instincts now are good, but it took some practice to get in touch with. So a lot of times we'll think, if I set a boundary with this person, they're going to just be like, nope, too complicated, too hard, I'm not going to bother. But the reality is actually the opposite. So first of all, anyone that does like, oh no, I can't handle a boundary, goodbye, like you don't want that person in your life anyway. They're going to continue to cross your boundaries and push you again and again and again. So you might as well just let it go as early as possible. And setting boundaries early, even little boundaries, is so powerful, because the partner, they want to be with someone that has boundaries. A smart person that's dating, if you so if two people are on a date and one of them's pushing the other one to like move things along really fast, and they're like, no, I don't want to. Okay. What you're telling that person is, I'm malleable. I will be convinced by anyone, anywhere, anytime. Like there's a lot of assumptions that go into it. But the reverse is, if you set a boundary, it shows that person, wow, this person knows how to set boundaries. So when they're out on the town with their girlfriends and they're dating me, I need to know that that person can set boundaries.
That's a great way of looking at it. I wouldn't have thought about that. So that'll be like an Instagram reel for sure, because I think that's a good quote.
Yeah, I remember when I was on my first date with my partner now, and I was talking to some guy, my partner had walked away with a friend, and some guy was talking to me. And when Tim came up and I introduced him, I was like, oh, this is my date for the evening. So it wasn't like, this is my man, or this is my friend, or this is just somebody. It was like, I set that boundary to be like, I'm with him, even though I just met him today and we don't have any level of commitment or whatever, like I'm here with him. So there's just something about like having boundaries overall with your date, with other people, in your life, in your family, in your business, work, whatever, that just makes someone even more appealing as a partner. Like we need that.
Do you typically coach your folks on, or do you cover like how to negotiate through those boundaries and figure out what the relationship will look like at some point?
Yeah. So I have a foundation of embodiment, and Chris, that's something you and I had connected on too, was the somatic treatment of trauma, and how important the mind-body connection is, and how we hold our trauma in our body. And there's so much that, we really need to start there. So I have a foundation of embodiment so that people get in touch with, how do you really feel? Like it's hard to set a boundary when you don't really know how you feel and you're
Hmm.
confused and torn and you're like, but I like him, but I don't, but I want to, but I don't, but I don't know. But when you really get quiet and look within and feel your sensations, you get clarity, you know, and that's the difference between your head talking to you out of fear versus your gut that's just like dropping truths. So first we have to get in touch with ourselves, and that is done through embodied practices. And you know, embodiment's just a big word for a very simple concept of being fully present in your body. It's the reason it's hard now, one of the reasons is that we just have so much going on all the time, and we're always like running from one task to the next, to this video, to that, to I gotta check this and I gotta check that, and and like, when do you have time to listen to your own inner self and inner guidance? And that's where, you know, we connect with the divine, and there's all this power. And anyway, so we have to really be in touch with how we feel and what we need first. And then we just say, here's how I feel, and here's what I need. And then we ask. You know, I think another mistake people make is going on long monologues. You know, I felt this way for a long time, and you always do this. And I just think that it's because your mom did this, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you've lost the person. You've totally lost them. It's best to just be like, is now a good time for us to talk? No? Okay. And then you ask them again within 24 hours. But, you know, they might have to pee. They might be hungry. They might be cranky. There might not be a good time, and they're going to overreact. And so it's good to ask that question first, like get permission, and then build, break, build. So you say something positive, like, I've really been enjoying our time together. And then you drop the boundary. But, you know, I noticed that when we make plans, you keep breaking them, and that just doesn't work for me. Is that something you can do better on? You know, like you tell them what you need. I need you to I need you to follow through on what you say. Can you do that? And then you stop talking. Let them talk. Listen. A lot of us, we think that communication is just, I just have to say it. I just have to let them know everything that I'm feeling and everything that I'm thinking. And that's a big no-no. Like, I just talked to a girl yesterday who's in my program, and she's like, and she's freaking out because she really likes this guy and he really likes her. And she's like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. And I was like, and she's like, but I'm freaking out and I need him to call me. And if he doesn't call me, I'm like, how long has it been? 12 hours? Relax, let go. Nothing's changed in 6 hours since he left. Like, he doesn't have to call and check in every 6 hours. This is a you problem. But yeah, so she was saying, maybe she's like, well, I just need to talk to him and I need to tell him how I'm feeling and how worried I am and all my fears. And I'm like, no, you don't. No. There's a time and place to share that. But what that does is she's outsourcing her own emotional regulation onto someone else. And we do co-regulate and we do rely on our partner sometimes, but save that for when you need it. Don't need it all day, every day, because you're going to exhaust that person. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
absolutely. Part of our own self-leadership and managing ourselves first. So then we can show up as our best self in that relationship.
I love that.
Having 100% both of us, in a way, responsibility for ourselves first.
And life's going to get hard, you know?
Yeah.
People die, we lose jobs, financial problems. Like, life's going to get a lot harder than I haven't heard from you in 12 hours. True. You better be able to get through those moments pretty easily. And it does. It takes self-control and self-leadership, and then knowing the skills, like how to talk to someone. So if you know the format, build, break, build, set a consequence, then you don't have to tell them every thought and every feeling and every worry and like dumping your emotional baggage onto this other person. Because if they love you, they're going to take it all on, and that's not good for anyone. But instead, you could come to someone and say, you know what? My fear is really taking over, and I'm just feeling a lot of fear. And I would really love to see you soon. I would feel so much better in your arms, getting a hug from you to just quench my fear. Could we do that? Do you think you could come over? Like, that's so much better than dumping everything and being like, I'm just worried that you're going to leave me. And like, what, you know, you're manifesting, you're speaking these spells to, you know, self-fulfilling prophecies happen. So if you're like, I'm just worried that you're going to meet someone else and leave me, like, you're pushing them right into the arms of somebody else. So if you can focus on what you want and what you need in the affirmative, in the positive, you know, my fear's taking over, but what I need is a hug. I would really love a hug. Can I have a hug? Is so much better. And then it's like, oh yeah, a hug, that would be great. Yeah. And then everything feels better. Like, I know a lot of women that have had that happen where they're freaking out, mental overthinking. I've done it so much. And just that, because it's your nervous system regulation, because it's, you know, but we can also give that hug to ourselves. And that's part of the embodiment and self-compassion practice that I teach too. And that's kind of what I did to help her off the ledge yesterday. It's like, you don't need him to quelch this. You need to learn to self-soothe, and self-soothing just goes so far.
Whitney, let's imagine for some reason somebody listening to this episode skipped through the entire episode until right this minute. What would be the 1 to 2 big takeaways that they could listen to that would say, I got to go listen to the rest of this episode?
Dating has changed in this modern world. You can be a victim of it, you can give up, or you can overcome it. And I highly encourage people to overcome the difficulties, the barrier to dating, to finding love, because although being in a toxic or fighting relationship is not much fun and not good for us, being in a healthy, supportive, nurturing relationship is just one of the greatest gifts that we can have in our lifetime. And the person you choose to be your long-term partner is like the most important thing you will ever decide. You see them all day long, every day. They affect where you live. They affect your family life. They affect your confidence. They affect your ability to show up at work. They affect your health. So many things. Like, this is a big deal and something that we need to pay attention to and not just leave to chance. So I think we really need to learn how to date and how to communicate and how to be in a healthy relationship, because the payoff is so worth it.
I love that. And when somebody feels like, I am too overwhelmed with this, I need help, I want to talk to you, how they can reach you and find you?
On my website, whitneykobrin.com, Kobrin. They can set up a consultation that's free. So I will give you all the free advice and help you with a strategy on how to get through what you need to. And if we decide to work together, great. If not, no worries, no obligation. I do group programs, I do individual coaching, and I do a 90-minute session that's also on my website. So if you just want me to go through your dating profile and give you like a good direction, and then you're on your own, lots of different ways that I could work with someone. I also know a ton of coaches. So if I'm not the coach for you, if you need a male masculinity coach, I will connect you with one of those. If you need a sex coach, I'll connect you with that, health coach, whatever. I really want to work with people that are the right fit, and yeah, both ways.
Beautiful.
That's awesome. So we'll put all that in the show notes. But Whitney, this was such a cool conversation. I wish I have like so many questions, more questions about relationships and dating, but sadly none of them apply to me. So really it's just more for my own personal information, I guess.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, for sure. So we're happy that you're doing the work out there and helping so many people. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and our audience.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.